Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled.
From the studio gym where excuses never apply,
It's Superhuman Radio.
with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have a great show planned for you today. A very important topic, one that I've been talking about for over a decade now, and that is the sleep quality, the importance of sleep. We know that the majority of Americans don't sleep well. The ones who say they do, they lie a lot of times. The reality is that all around the world, sleep is a problem today. And it's leading to a variety of diseases. Extreme levels of sleep deprivation can actually take a person's life. I remember reading an article about a guy who just couldn't sleep, and it killed him eventually. And so we're going to be talking about why that actually happens. And it intersects another topic that we love on this show, and that's the microbiome in the gut, because, you know, I'm all about the gut. I really do believe that a lot of diseases today begin in the gut. And if we could get those straightened out, we would be a lot better off. Before we get started, I have to thank my title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods. Legendary Foods makes a generous contribution to this show to make it possible. And they have the best responsible snacks in the world. And what do I mean by that? Snacks that don't have sugar or much sugar at all in them, purposefully high protein, low impact carbohydrate. They have seasoned nuts, almonds that are fresh and delicious. They have the most decadent tasting nut butters that have zero sugar in them. You'll swear that they do have sugar in them, and they don't. But more importantly, they have a product that they introduced called the Tasty Pastry that's taking the world by storm. It's actually available in Vitamin Shop now, and the demand is growing. The Tasty Pastry is basically a Pop-Tart with 9 grams of high leucine protein, less than 1 gram of sugar. And it tastes delicious. Your kids will love it. They won't even know they're eating something good. Go to eatlegendary.com. Use the code SHR10 to get 10% off your entire purchase. Show them some love. And by the way, Ron Penna, the co-founder, he and his wife Shannon started Legendary Foods, is the reason we're doing this show, because he sent me this study, and I thought, oh, he knew that this was going to be fascinating. So I'm going to bring my guests on now and see if I can do this easily. There we go. And we will also introduce them all. So to my left, I have Dr. Alex Vaccaro. Beneath her, Dr. Yosef Kaplan, and then Professor and Dr. Dragana Rogulja. Welcome to the show, all three of you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Rogulja, because you are also the professor in this department of medicine, and I want to put the brand up so we can plug. This is from the Harvard School of Medicine, and their website is right there. So let's talk first about this study. Why was this study even important? What preceded this work that led you to want to do this? Or I guess Dr. Vaccaro was really the one who was the lead author on this, but why this study?
Yeah, so there's really a lot of evidence, like you already alluded to, that sleep loss is bad, right? There are a lot of diseases that can be directly or indirectly linked to poor sleep. So now we really think that having sleep problems can exacerbate a lot of diseases, but even cause some. And these are pretty serious things, like including cancer, diabetes, depression, etc. So there's all this evidence there. And then you have sleep research, people doing research on sleep in labs, etc. And most of this work, not all, but most of it was focused on the brain, sort of what does sleep do for the brain. And that's not that surprising if you think about the fact that, of course, the nervous system is needed to generate sleep. You dream during this time. And of course, if you don't sleep, you do feel pretty bad the next day. You can't really think straight and so on. And so it's pretty clear that sleep is required for normal brain function. But we thought that this could not be all there is to it. right? So we also know that animals that are a lot more simple than we are, that have very simple nervous system, have nothing resembling our brain, they do engage in these behaviors that resemble sleep, and they seem to need it. So many studies have been done where people would deprive various model organisms of sleep long-term, and then what they would see is that normally this leads to death of the animal. But there was no explanation for this, so that there has never been any cause of this death found. And so when you put all of this together, we just thought that there's probably some more fundamental or vital nature of sleep that probably originated a long, long time ago. And then all of these, fancy things that sleep is doing now probably evolved, over the many millions of years of animal evolution. And so we simply
and human. Yeah.
And human,
yeah.
I think of humans as animals. So yes, human animals, including humans. Yes, exactly. So we definitely think that all these things that people find, there's synaptic remodeling, there's flushing of things from the brain, etc. All of these things probably do happen, but that's not all there is. And again, memories, all of that are impacted, but that's not all. So we thought, okay, let's start from kind of first principles and just figure out for ourselves, what does it really do? What happens when animals are sleep deprived? Can we really observe this kind of lifespan? Is it shortened in sort of a predictable way, or do things just fall apart randomly? But the main thing is that if the animal is dying, for example, when you're really severely restricted of sleep, there has to be some cellular damage, right? And in the body somewhere. And so we just, the most important thing is that we kind of rejected this notion that sleep has to be about the brain. There's the saying, sleep is off the brain, by the brain, for the brain. And we just thought it cannot be all about this. And maybe the reason why people cannot figure out what's killing animals when they're losing sleep is that they keep looking in the brain. And I just want to point out that the studies before us, they have looked in sleep-deprived brains, and they just could not find any obvious signs of injury. So again, then we thought, okay, let's just start kind of from the bottom, build the story up, examine sleep-deprived flies. It was shown by many, many labs that sleep in flies is very similar to our sleep, including the fact that they need sleep. So if you deprive them of sleep, they die early. So that's where we started from, and then we thought, okay, if we find something, if we could figure out what's happening in these animals, we can then take it to other model organisms, including mammals.
So I'll go to Dr. Vaccaro now. So the interesting thing about this was really, I have to believe that, so your approach was almost like metabolomics, right? We do this and we look at everything that could happen and look for the one thing that seems to be happening that then drives premature death. You had to be surprised that it was the oxidative effects of reactive oxygen species. ROS is not all bad. ROS actually has been implicated in stopping solid tumors from growing, for instance. It causes apoptosis in tumor cells. So and we all want to find the bad thing, and we always find out, well, it's not bad, it's only bad in these circumstances. But you had to be surprised when you saw this this causal effect in reactive oxygen species, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I think we were all surprised. And like you said, I think the key was really to look everywhere. And I think I was expecting probably to see multiple organs that would be affected, and that would be really hard to actually pin it down to one specific place in the body. I think that was the most surprising to me when I looked at all those tissues, that it was only the gut that had this increase in reactive oxygen species, or ROS, like you described, and that it was so clear compared to non-deprived flies. So that was definitely like the most surprising thing. And then I think what was really interesting, like you said, is that ROS are good, and we see that they start accumulating at the beginning of sleep deprivation, and it's gradual, right? So it's probably happening as kind of a protective response at the beginning, but then they reach really high levels right before animals start dying.
Well, let's talk about that. So and maybe we could throw this question to your colleague, Dr. Yosef Dor. So the study was designed in such a way where you took a group of control and a group of fruit flies, And what did you do to actually increase the oxidative stress in the subject fruit flies?
Okay, yeah. So we didn't directly try to cause oxidative stress, right? What we tried was to prevent sleep, and we used 3 different methods. So one, and that's the one we use the most, is where we specifically activate neurons in the fly brain that prevent sleep. And other 2 methods, yeah.
No, and how did you do that? So you used a function of temperature sensation, right?
Yeah. So basically, it's a widely used method. So we have genetically modified flies, and just we can make them to express the specific protein called TRPA1 in very specific small subset of neurons in the fly brain. And what we do, so this protein is sensitive to temperature. And flies cannot control their own body's temperature. So it's very easy. You can take these flies and just put them from low temperature to high temperature. And so in Celsius, it will be moving from 21 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius. And you have to help it to convert it to Fahrenheit. But it's not a dangerous temperature. It's temperature where flies can be healthy and function normally.
They're just uncomfortable, right? Like I'm that way. If the temperature is too warm in my bedroom, I don't sleep well. I know that. I like to keep my bedroom 67 degrees and I sleep better. So what you're saying is that this is just a more severe reaction in these flies. It's not that they just don't sleep well. They just don't sleep, right?
Yeah. So So I need to specify. It's not the fact that they don't feel comfortable because of temperature. So it's true that temperature affects sleep in animals, including in flies. But our control flies were also kept in the same higher temperature, and they were sleeping fine and they were healthy. So the temperature reduced as a trigger, as a very specific trick to activate a very small number of neurons in the fly brain, and then the flies don't sleep. So it's not the temperature per se.
Can I add something? Sorry to interrupt. Have you heard of optogenetics, where you use light to? Okay, so that's a lot of people will have heard of that. It's basically a method where you express certain light-sensitive proteins in the cell, and then if you shine light on those neurons, they can be activated. This is called optogenetics, and the method that we use is called thermogenetics. So the protein that you express in neurons is this channel that's temperature sensitive, and then the neurons get activated essentially. And those neurons that prevent sleep get activated, so your animals are constantly in this aroused kind of awake state.
Yeah,
and as you point out, the controls, they had normal sleep patterns, even though they were not as sensitive, let's say, to that, or their neurons weren't as sensitive to that temperature.
We don't put that temperature sensitive channel into their neurons. So they're the same temperature. They just feel that little slight discomfort, let's say, from temperature, but there's nothing in their neurons that's allowing that temperature to actually activate specific neurons.
Right. So then, Doc, what I was going to say, so then around the 10-day mark, you started to look at the markers for cell damage, right? In the ones that did have the activated neurons for temperature, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I just wanted to add that we also used other methods of sleep deprivation, and which gave us the same results. So another one was just basically shaking the flies. So we have a device where we put the flies on it, and we shake them randomly so they don't get used to it. It's like rocking a baby. And it works very well for one night. If you do it for many days, they get used to it and then manage to sleep. But we had a small number of flies that were sleep deprived for several days, and then we could that was really good, because then we could separate between the effect of shaking itself and the stress that it could cause and the actual loss of sleep. And also, we used mutants. So we have mutant flies with mutations in specific genes that are known to control sleep. And these flies are just continuously not sleeping well. So they're not completely sleep deprived, but they lose a lot of sleep, and to various degrees. So those 3 very different methods, and they all gave us the same result in terms of oxidative stress in their gut.
Interesting. So around 10 days, you started to see a high rate of mortality, right?
Yeah, that was so that's with thermogenetic sleep deprivation, when you use this heat-sensitive protein in fly neurons. And yeah, I think that was really striking when we started looking at survival, especially with Dragana at the beginning. We would be really struck how like the survival curves, the pattern was the same every time we would do the experiment. And starting day 10 of sleep deprivation, you would start seeing a lot of flies being sick. And what I mean by that is they're very slow, they don't move a lot, and you can tell that, you know, they're definitely not healthy and might die very soon. But also you would start seeing dead flies, and that would go then on for until they're all dead.
Yeah, this was a really cool.
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
I was just going to say that this was the first, like Alex alluded to, this was the first kind of encouraging moment for us. Because to be honest, you know, we were really excited about this, but, you know, I don't know how much faith we had that we would really find something specific, you know, because it was like, okay, this is a big problem. A lot of people have looked before. It's probably a lot of things are falling apart. You can imagine that a lot of things go bad when you don't sleep. So finding a specific cause of that seemed unlikely. And yeah, so then if you look at these curves and you see that it's very predictable when the animals would start dying, that kind of tells you that there may be a really specific reason. It's not like just all over the place things are falling apart.
Would it be safe to assume that in the absence of frank sleep deprivation, but just the subtleties of having really crappy sleep for decades, would maybe not kill you as quickly and predictably in this time frame, but clearly would kind of wear the years off of your life?
Yeah, I mean, and we have evidence in flies, because what is nice with this thermogenetic tools is that you can, like Yossi said, target small group of neurons, and you can use different fly transgenic lines by targeting different group of neurons, and then we actually could find activation of neurons that would lead to different levels of different degrees of sleep deprivation. So the one that we show in the paper leads to about 90% sleep loss. There are two different lines, but they produce the same amount of sleep deprivation and very consistently give the same survival pattern. But now if we only 60% sleep loss, or even less, 45%, for example, you will see the exact same events, but it will be shifted, right? So they will die after the 90% sleep loss flies, because they didn't lose as much sleep as the 90% sleep loss flies, and they will accumulate reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress, but it will occur later. So you can, I mean, I think it's totally plausible that in humans the same thing happens. You're constantly sleep deprived, or you have insomnia, poor sleep, like poor quality of sleep for years, and it will eventually have bad outcomes for your health.
I wonder what would happen if you took. Good. I'm sorry, Dragana. Please,
no, I'm so bad. I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
No,
I just wanted to.
If you don't do that, you won't get a word in edgewise with me. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that there's probably a certain amount of sleep that can be tolerated without these kinds of effects. We did see some manipulations, like in insomnia RNAi flies, guys, like where some sleep mutants that would lose, I don't know, like 15 to 20% of sleep, and they were okay. They were not dying earlier, but it's hard to say. You know, flies spend a lot of time in this. There's not that much for them to do, so they probably spend more time kind of inactive and the sleepy state, so to speak, that they necessarily need for survival. So there probably is a certain threshold, you know, below which you don't want to fall for these kind of life-threatening effects. And then everything, there could be like more sleep that you need for, you know, some kind of mental function or whatever, but there is a certain amount that you need for like proper, you know, for survival and that. And we don't know yet what that is. By the way.
So what do you think about, what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry, Yosef, did you say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add quickly that we do think that what we found in flies and mice may apply to humans, but it doesn't mean that that's the only function of sleep, as also Dragana said. And it could be, it's very likely that some other bad effects on health of insufficient sleep could be unrelated to what we found. So, you know, sleep does a lot of things, and it's definitely very important. So it doesn't have to be all about the gut and ROS.
But do you think that if circadian rhythm wasn't observed, but sleep duration was. So in fact, if let's say fruit flies sleep at night like humans, if you disrupted nighttime sleep but let them sleep during the day, would you see a reversal of these conditions?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think we don't. That's a really good question. We haven't done those experiments yet, where you actually allow the same amount of sleep but at a different time. And this is actually super important because probably what you're thinking of is like there are a lot of people that work
shift workers.
Yeah, exactly. And there is evidence that those people have higher incidence of certain cancers, and colon cancer is actually one that comes up high. And so I do have a feeling that, you know, those people probably also sleep less than they should, because you probably never really get the same amount of sleep, and you know your clock does influence
and quality of sleep. It's
not the same. So we don't know that, but it's exactly something that we could do in flies. So you know we can do those kinds of experiments. We just don't know yet. My gut feeling would be that no pun intended, my feeling would be that probably that's also important. That's also important, like when you sleep. I do think that.
Yeah, from an evolutionary perspective, I believe in that. In fact, we can thank a 1987 film called Wall Street with Charlie Sheen and Michael Douglas for the switch in observance of good sleep. When Bud Fox is talking to Gordon Gekko, and Gordon's on the beach in California, and he's just bragging that he's been up all night trading in the stock exchange in China. And he says to Bud, nobody makes money when they sleep. And thousands of Americans went, oh, so maybe I should stop sleeping if I want to be successful. And everything went crazy after that. People thought, oh, sleep's not important. I've had so many people tell me that over the years, and then I watch them, and I watch how their lives hit the wall eventually. But anyway, okay, so you also did additional experiments in mice, and you found this same hyperaccumulation of reactive oxygen species in their guts. Did you see higher levels of ROS in any other areas, any other tissue?
No, similar to the flies, when we looked pretty much everywhere in mice, the only tissue and the only organ where we could see elevated reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress was the small and the large intestines. But
go ahead, Joseph.
So I want to mention, because our deprivation protocol in mice was only for 5 days. So that's pretty short time frame. And there was at least one study where we know of that did longer deprivation. I forgot how many days exactly, in rats, by the lab of Carol Everson. And they did see some oxidative damage also in the gut, like we did, but also in some other tissues. I think it was the lung and the liver.
The liver, yeah.
But
the cells in the intestine were the only ones that were dying, actually, in those experiments. So
we don't know
this spreads, yeah.
So we don't know what will happen in our hands if we did it for a longer time period, but it definitely looks like the first thing that goes wrong is the gut.
And I can tell you what goes wrong. So my audience is going to go, oh, Carl, we know. But anytime we talk about the gut, we're talking about the immune system. And anytime we're talking about the immune system, we're talking about inflammation, because inflammation is the army of the immune system. So once you screw the gut up, everything else goes bad. It's inevitable. But with that being said, were you able to identify where the production of ROS was coming from? Was it a particular group of microbes, for instance, like bacteroidetes or firmicutes or anything like that?
So we have.
Why are you smiling, Dragana? You're smiling.
I think, yeah, because like you're getting ready. No, we think we know what produces ROS. We're just not ready to talk about it because we need to check it like many more ways. But yeah, we think we're actually pretty close to pinning down the exact mechanism that makes this.
Yeah, but
we need more to it.
But at least in terms of at least in the fly, we know the main kind of cells where these ROS accumulate, because what we did in the paper, we used genetically modified flies that produce very high levels of antioxidant enzymes in the main cell type in the gut. So the gut has many kinds of cells. And in the fly gut, there is one kind of cells that are called enterocytes. You also have these cells in mammalian and the human gut. These are the cells that absorb nutrients. And these cells are known also to be able to produce ROS, for example, to kill bacteria or to control bacteria, or to regulate how much proliferation you have in the gut. So when we neutralize ROS specifically in these cells, then the flies can survive normally despite the fact that they don't sleep. So we know that these ROS are probably coming from those cells, but again, we need to look into it more and study it more carefully.
I want to take a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk about preventing death using antioxidants. So your group experimented with was it 51 or 53, Dr. Vaccaro?
53.
Different antioxidants, and you discovered that some of them actually mitigated this damage. Well, I guess before we go there, what is the reactive oxygen species doing specifically that speeds death? Is it increasing the accumulation of senescent cells? Is it damaging the nervous system? Is it modifying or mutating DNA? Do we know?
Yeah, so ROS can, at high levels, because as you mentioned and we alluded earlier, at low levels, physiological levels, ROS are important and good. They have good, important signaling functions, but at high levels, they become harmful because they oxidize DNA, lipids, and proteins. And so by doing that, it will lead to oxidative stress in the tissue, and then eventually can lead to cell death and cell.
But we can't say yet what's actually killing the animals. The gut is messed up, but we don't know yet what kills the animals. We do think that inflammation will play a role, for example. That's very
there's a couple other nice things I want to talk about, because you also looked at ad libitum feeding and restricted feeding, because obviously we all know that when you don't sleep well, the next day you crave carbohydrates and you just want to eat everything in sight. So I know that you examined that as well. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to pick it up on the other side. Stay tuned. This is going to be fascinating, because we're going to tell you about antioxidants that actually saved some of these fruit flies. So stay tuned.
You've heard about blood flow restricted training since 2006 on SHR, but you're still on the fence.
Well, here's the push. BFR is more effective at building muscle than anabolic steroids. That's right, I went there, but it's because it's the truth. My experience with the Be Strong blood flow restriction system is proof to me, and now I'm asking myself why I waited so long. You'll see undeniable changes in the targeted muscles in days and weeks like nothing you've ever tried before. I will never stop using them. Give Be Strong a try. Go to bestrong.training/super-human and use code SHR for 10% off.
Men and women, you've heard about hormone optimization. Do you feel like it's something you want to look into? RenewLifeRx.com is the place to start. Their doctors can help you with the solutions. RenewLifeRx.com has a simple process for lab work, consultation, and taking a deep dive into where your hormone levels can be improved. Superhuman Radio listeners get 30% off your initial lab work and consultation. Go to RenewLifeRx.com to schedule your no-obligation phone consultation today. Feel younger, get in better shape, and be more productive at RenewLifeRx.com.
Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus lifting company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do that with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me. So to help with anxiety, because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I've found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000. Or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. I love beef, and if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender, with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to PIEDMONTESE.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Alex Vaccaro, Dr. Yosef Kaplan, and Dr. Dragana Rogulja. We're talking about how sleep affects your lifespan, quite frankly. Really, that's what it comes down to. We already know that sleep deprivation and impaired sleep quality is tied very closely to the development of type 2 diabetes. So many of us wear blue light blocking glasses at night when we work on our computers or watch television because we don't want to stop that pulse of melatonin so that we can get to sleep. And then many of us, like myself, I take anywhere from 6 to 9 milligrams of melatonin a night and have done so for the better part of 20 years now. So let's talk about the antioxidant. And before we do that, I have to put up a comment because we have someone in the audience that's already on this. So Chrysis Fox says, without sleep, there is no melatonin, which is one of the most powerful antioxidants. No? Runaway train of ROS leading to death. You looked at 53 different antioxidants. One of them was melatonin, was it not?
Yeah, exactly. One was melatonin. And I mean, I actually didn't know that before I went to the literature looking for potential antioxidants to try on my sleep-deprived flies, but melatonin is a very potent antioxidant. And so that's why it was included in the list of compounds that we originally tested. So as you mentioned earlier, we tested 53 of them, and we selected them based on previous literature, either on fruit flies, but other organism models. And we added the compounds to the fly food and looked at survival in sleep-deprived flies, also in control flies, and looked at survival, but also their sleep, because we wanted to make sure that whatever effect that we would find with those antioxidant compounds was not due to those flies sleeping more. And so these 53 compounds, we identified 11 that can extend survival in sleep-deprived flies.
And so what were the top 11 the most effective?
So I would say like the 3 top ones are melatonin, which was definitely one of the best antioxidant compounds. And it is definitely not due to a fly sleeping more. In this case, we think because, and melatonin is an antioxidant, but also because, and I didn't know that also before working with melatonin, it's present at high levels in the gut. And that's why it might be so efficient at neutralizing ROS in the gut of sleep-deprived flies. Another one that was very efficient is called Lipoic acid. And another one was NAD, or nicotinamide
Right.
adenine
Nucleotide,
nucleotide.
yeah.
Sorry,
D-rib.
NAD,
Yeah.
which is also, I mean, has been used in a number of studies to extend survival.
So these compounds, and all of them are in the study, right? Because I have a link to the study itself, so I can see what the other 53 or 51 are. So these compounds did not help the fruit flies or animals that they were tested on sleep better, but they mitigated the ROS accumulation in the stomach, right?
Exactly. So none of those compounds actually extended sleep amount, or I mean, increased sleep amount in the sleep deprived flies. It only extended survival, and it was doing that by clearing ROS in the gut of sleep deprived animals.
Did you look at glutathione?
I did. Why are you asking about glutathione specifically?
Well, I take about 2 to 3 grams of glutathione a day as I age, and I'm just glutathione is a fantastic antioxidant. It's very good for the liver, the kidneys, and I'm just curious if it had an effect on mitigating the damage from sleep, poor sleep.
Actually, we did, and glutathione was not able to extend survival in our flies, even though we tried different concentrations. So I think that the key also here, and I mean, it took us a while to figure out the right dose for each antioxidant and the right time to administer antioxidants to flies. So I can only say that for glutathione, like, we tried, I would say, at least 3 concentrations for each compound. We were not able to find the right concentration, maybe, but I mean, it's not part of the compounds that worked. I mean, we don't know exactly why, but yeah,
it could be that at some dose it would work. But there are also controversies about a lot of these antioxidants, right? Where there's some studies that show that glutathione can even be bad because it can help cancer cells survive, right? Like you said earlier, that ROS could kill cancer cells, so then these cancer cells can use glutathione to defend themselves from ROS, which would kill. And that's what we kind of figure out. That's the super fascinating thing here, is that, and that we really want to stress that we're definitely not trying to say you can just pop a pill, any antioxidant, and you don't need to sleep anymore. Okay, it's really, and this has been I'm sure you're aware of it, a big controversy where people do all these studies on antioxidants. Does it, are they good? Are they bad? Do they extend lifespan? And they find really different results, even when they look at the same animal, but in different labs. And so when we tried these antioxidants on non-deprived flies, okay, we could not see any extension of lifespan, even in those antioxidants that were really good at rescuing survival. In those animals that were not deprived, they didn't do anything. They did not extend the lifespan. So that really tells you that there is a context-specific need for antioxidants. It also tells you that you probably should be mindful of what you're actually taking, how much you're taking. And it could probably be different based on age, of the subject and so on, even the sex. We did our experiments on male animals just for practical reasons. The deprivation worked better, but we're definitely interested in doing this on females as well, and then looking at different ages and stuff.
I was going to ask you about hormones, because we know that during sleep is when the hormonal symphony occurs. Most of the hormones are made at night. The sex steroids are made at night. Growth factors are made at night. They pulse at night. And I was going to ask, do you think there's a role in all of this when we look at, we know that when people don't sleep well, their thyroids don't function, their ovaries don't function. I mean, all these hormones just go down. I'm wondering if there's a role for hormones in this discussion, because I've done shows, like I did one show on oxytocin and how it improves muscle quality in old rodents. Then shortly thereafter, I did a show on a gut microbe called L. reuteri. And L-reuteri thrives in the guts of animals with high oxytocin. So I said, well, does the oxytocin increase L-reuteri or does the L-reuteri increase oxytocin? And the scientist says, we don't know yet. So, you know, there's this whole interplay with hormones and the gut as well.
We don't know. I wish we knew, and that's exactly what we wanted to find. We do think that it's very likely that there is some communication between the brain and the gut. And I mean, we know there is a lot of communication between the brain and the gut and the brain. So it could be that some signals that come from the brain when you sleep deprived affect your gut function, and that could lead to this accumulation of ROS. But right now we don't know.
But what's really cool here is also that because we have these two quite different model systems. So flies and mice are very similar in many ways. The flies are really similar to us. That's why we use them. Obviously, we don't care about flies per se. I mean, we care about them deeply, but you know, we wouldn't be studying them per se if they were not
you gotta be careful today saying you don't care about flies.
No, we care about them a lot. So let me just say this. I actually want to address this. We love our animals. We love flies. No. I meant to say that nobody would be studying flies per se if they were not
for the
so
flies
similar
for
to
the
us.
flies' own good.
That's
right,
it.
exactly.
That's what we're trying to say. Like we study them because they're similar to us. Don't get me wrong. They are amazing. We love them, and really respect them. And you know, but they're simpler than us in some ways, right? So like they have a lot of the molecules that we have, but they don't have all of the same hormones. You know, they're not exactly the same as us. Their lifespan is on a different scale. But that's why it's really cool that we see the same thing happening in their gut and in the mouse gut. So it's a little bit more reductionist system in which we can come to kind of basic mechanisms more easily. So okay, if I may just address this for a second, like with animals, because I've seen, you know, people saying something like, you know, this is really cruel what we're doing and something like that. And I kind of want to address that if you'll allow me for a second, you know, the depriving animals of sleep and so. So I want to say that the reason we're doing these studies is because we genuinely believe that this is a health problem for humans. Because we know, even from my own experience, look, I work on sleep. We'll still email to each other at like 2 or 3 at night. Okay, like we know that not sleeping is not good, but we still, you know, we all do it. Some people have trouble sleeping, as you said, as you get older. Even if you want to sleep, you just can't. Some people work shifts. Some people have babies. They can't sleep. Some people are sick. Some people this and that, right? You're just worried you don't sleep enough. And we genuinely believe that this leads to a lot of health problems. That's why we're doing this. And we're definitely not into torturing animals. We care about them deeply. We try to do meaningful experiments. This is something that because I struggled with this in the beginning. I don't like torturing animals. I don't like to, you know, see them suffer. When I started working with flies, I had nightmares.
But you're not torturing animals by depriving them of sleep per se. You know, I mean, and I don't think anybody in my audience.
They're scientists, scientifically minded, or sort of. Well, hopefully somebody at least sees this and like thinks about it. You know, because we also do get some emails from people saying, "How can you do that and torture animals?" And I try to explain to them, we really do care about them. We just think that our long-term goal is to come up something that's going to help people in the long term. Because I'm telling you, it's not everybody needs a sleeping pill. Not everybody needs something to help them sleep better. A lot of people need that, but a lot of other people, it's not that they couldn't sleep more. They just don't have the opportunity to sleep more due to various reasons, etc.
The other thing that needs to be addressed is that sleeping pills like Ambien and Lunestra, just because you lay still for 8 hours doesn't mean you're sleeping in the clinical sense of what sleep is. You know, sleep is undulating. I have 3 different devices I track my sleep with: deep sleep, REM sleep, light sleep, and these undulations are for a reason, because hormones are produced every 1.5 hours at night. Testosterone is produced around 2 a.m. in the morning. You know, these things happen for a reason. We evolved to go to sleep when it got dark and be up, and they called it the locomotive period, in the daytime. And we have totally cast all of that aside in modernity. And we want to stay up and watch Jimmy Kimmel and then eat right before bed. And all these things are antithetical to health. They don't improve health. So we have to do studies on sleep, and we can't do them on humans.
Yeah,
Quite often you can't do these studies, but because then you get, nobody's going to give you an IRB to torture humans. So you got to do it to flies sometimes.
You can get to the mechanism, and even mice would be really hard, because how are you going to do these longevity studies really? And you need lots and lots of animals. So we found Ross within months of starting the project. It was actually extremely fast, but then we took the following 3 years to make sure that there's no holes in our story, to really try to poke holes any way that we could, and we couldn't find any. We just kept accumulating more and more data. And you just couldn't do that in another model organism. You could not do the level of study that we wanted to do and that we did do in the end using another model. But we do use mice, after kind of being led by flies, and then we like to see things in a mammalian system.
And you go up the chain, so to speak, until you can do actual human studies, which you probably can with this type of stuff.
But they're so close to us.
There are plenty of insomniacs out there that are happy to be awake in a lab as opposed to being awake in their living room.
Yeah, so or undergrads, preparing for cramming for exams and stuff. So, you can do some stuff like take feces from people that have been sleep deprived, profile it, look for markers of inflammation, look at bacteria. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do, but you just cannot be really rigorous, enough and quantitative, like working with humans. It's just not possible to do the kind of thing that we wanted to do.
So I love this study for two reasons. Number one, you're getting to the root of some of the problems with sleep. We're starting to go, okay, if we can do this, we can mitigate some of the damage of sleep. But you have solutions. I love, so often we do research papers and they point out diseases and conditions, and people go, all I can do now is worry now. But you actually have some solutions. So when we come back, we're going to focus on those, and we're going to tie up the loose ends. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio.
Planet Earth CBD offers a fast-acting transdermal patch that targets your aches and pains for the relief you need. Not only is the patch uniquely patented, but it is widely believed to provide larger quantities of available cannabinoids to the source of pain than other brands' subpar products. Effective for 24 to 48 hours, experience the benefits of Planet Earth's high-quality transdermal patch. Manufactured by Next Generation Technology in an FDA-registered facility, this pressure-sensitive adhesive delivers rich hemp extract directly through the skin. Be it a neck ache or a headache, you can count on CBD to take off the edge. Go to planetearthcbd.com today to learn more.
Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? The rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Hey, this is Carl. For 14 years, you've heard me talk about Can-C eye drops, and they being the reason that I do not need reading glasses at now 61 years old. But I regularly get emails and messages from people who've been using Can-C and having some amazing results. Recently, I got an email from a fellow named Chad, who, because he was on dexamethasone eye drops for over 6 months, developed a cataract. Can-C eye drops actually reduced my cataract to the point where even my doctor has a hard time finding it. I will never stop using Can-C eye drops twice a day. I've been using them since 2008, he says. And you should be too. There is no better way to keep your eyes healthy and seeing clearly than Can-C eye drops. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com today and get on board, and we will both be looking into the future with very clear vision.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom-made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium
magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. So, Chrysis Fox asked a question I'm going to put up here before we wrap up the discussion. How did ascorbic acid fare in the results of antioxidants?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the
Vitamin
question.
C. Vitamin C. How did vitamin C do?
Oh,
yeah, ascorbic acid.
Oh, I see it here now. Sorry. Yeah, so vitamin C is among the compounds that work pretty well in sleep-deprived flies, and you can actually extend survival of sleep-deprived flies if you feed them with vitamin C.
But it was on the lower end of effectiveness, if I remember. I think it was somewhere kind of at the bottom of our...
Yeah, it's not on the
it's not as good as melatonin. It's not like totally shifting, but it does.
You know, when my mother developed dementia, and I insisted that she take 3 milligrams of melatonin every single night, and she actually started to become much more lucid and talkative. And melatonin is amazing. I'm Dr. Russell Ryder, who they call him the godfather of the pineal gland. He first came on my show in 2006, and we talked about melatonin. He teaches at University of Texas at Dallas, I believe. And I think he's in his 80s now, and he still teaches. And he takes 60 milligrams of melatonin a night. Now, I'm not suggesting people do that. He has graduated over the years to higher and higher doses. But we've done shows that melatonin could potentially be the greatest anti-aging pill you could take for literally pennies a day. It has pleiotropic benefits to the body. And now we're talking about its antioxidant qualities as well. So ascorbic acid, it may help. This may help. Is there a timing factor? Do you give it to the subjects right before bedtime since the ROS is accumulating at night, or does it matter?
Yeah, so when we started the antioxidant feeding, I mean, we had no idea, right, how to give it, when, and what will work. I kind of had the idea, you know, like, oh, maybe if the flies are pre-treated with antioxidants before they're sleep deprived, they will be, you know, stronger and be able to deal with sleep deprivation better. And it was actually the opposite, because when we pre-treated flies, so even before they were sleep deprived, or right when we would start sleep depriving them with antioxidant compounds, most of the time it would not extend, actually would not expand survival, but it would actually be even worse than without the antioxidant compounds. And I mean, as we said, ROS are important for many things. So I think if you deplete the gut, but probably not only the gut, right? Because you feed them with antioxidants and you don't know where it actually goes in the body with those doses of antioxidants, it probably is bad for them if they don't need it. And we think that, yeah, it's probably that, because when we started giving the antioxidants starting day 7 of sleep deprivation, which is exactly when we start seeing an increase in ROS in the gut, then it works. So you pretty much have to wait until they get to a point where they start getting sick and ROS levels start accumulating in the gut to feed them to see a positive effect of antioxidant feeding on survival in sleep deprived flies.
So, Yosef, this means that those of us who take antioxidants every day as part of our vitamin regimen, and then we become sleep deprived 3 weeks from now, it's not doing us any good.
Well, I mean, I cannot tell, if it's good or bad for humans, but there's definitely this whole field of antioxidants. It's, at least in basic research and longevity studies, been quite controversial. And as like we said previously, it's really context dependent. Because ROS have so many important functions, physiological functions. And I also wanted to stress out, it's not only just antioxidants, that ROS are just some byproducts of metabolism. We have specific enzymes in our cells, in flies, mice, and humans. And all those, and the only thing that those enzymes do is producing ROS. And actually in humans, there are diseases that are associated with mutations in those genes. So if you don't produce, for example, a ROS in some immune cells, you develop disease. And also there are some gut disease, inflammatory disease associated with having not enough ROS. So it's really hard to say. For example, also regards to cancer, right? On one hand, you can think, okay, ROS causes DNA damage, that causes mutations that can contribute to cancer. But at least one study I know of, I think it was done in Sweden, where they compared the rates of prostate cancer in men that were with different diets or take away without supplements. And actually, it seemed as if supplements, and I think it was vitamin C, but I'm not completely sure. But one of the vitamins not only didn't help, but actually made increase incidence of cancer. So it's really hard to tell.
So IGF-1 is implicated in driving cancer, but cancer cells leverage everything that is good for healthy cells. Cancer cells are probably one of the most evolved cells designed to survive at all costs. And they make their own telomerase and repair their own DNA. They leverage IGF-1. But in the case of solid tumors, IGF-1 plays two roles in helping to promote the growth of tumor cells. And that is, number one, it stimulates growth. But number two, it suppresses ROS. And so it not only increases growth, but it shuts off the suppressor of growth at the same time. So, the truth of the matter is we really don't know a lot. We have to look as we go and things unfold. But as you point out, antioxidants, ROS is not a bad thing. It's a very, very important thing. And going out and I'm so glad you're on the show today, because you know that right now there's somebody at a newspaper that wants to write the article that says skip sleep and take vitamin C. This study says the antioxidants will keep you from getting sick. And it's so much more complex than that, and it's insulting to tell the average people something that dumbed down.
Exactly. People are not stupid. I think people can perfectly understand science. That's why we really appreciate this. And the other thing, if I can say, is that we put our paper, the PDF of our paper, on our website so people can go and look at the data. That's what we would really like, is for people to actually try to read the paper. We think that it's pretty, there's some technical stuff there, but we think it's pretty easy to follow. And the figures, we hope, are intuitive, and you can kind of see the results that we see, the effects that we see are not subtle. It's really something you can see with your eyes. And so I would encourage people to go and look, because we try to discuss the nuances of this. What are the limitations of our study? What can we really say, and what we don't feel comfortable saying yet? I think that's really important. So thank you so much for inviting us.
Oh, of course. This is fascinating stuff to me and the audience. I think it was funny because you guys were shocked every morning you would go and look at the flies and they'd still be alive, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. That was just, oh my God. That was so crazy. I couldn't stop talking about that. Anybody who came into like 50 feet of me for those several years heard about the study. Everybody knew. It was just like, wait, did I tell you like what happened in the last 2 days? Everybody. But people really cared. Everybody was so involved. It was super fun.
What is the enzyme that quenches ROS that our bodies make, Yosef?
Yeah, so there's several of them, but the one that we used is superoxide dismutase. So it converts one radical called superoxide. It converts it to peroxide, and another one that we used was catalase, which degrades peroxide.
Those are two very popular anti-aging products to take now. SOD and catalase. They've both been implicated in extending human life. Isn't that interesting?
Take the enzymes. You can't. So we did this genetically. You can actually, kind of make your
no,
cells
you can,
express.
Life Extension Foundation sells both superoxide dismutase. They sell SOD, and they started selling catalase about 5 or 6 years ago.
You're kidding? Like in a pill? I didn't know this.
Yes.
We didn't know this. That's really funny.
Yeah.
But there's some strains of bacteria. I'll just say this. This is also fun to think about. There's some strains of bacteria that are filled with SOD. And then they're in certain yogurts. It's L-lactis, I guess, is a good strain. And they pass. So work from Wendy Garrett's lab at Harvard School of Public Health she's done some work on this. So these bacteria, if you eat them, if your gut is fine, passes through, but there's inflammation, then your cells will lyse the bacteria. Bacteria will release SOD, and that can, improve colitis and some stuff like that. So these are all kinds of things we're thinking about.
It's the lactic acid forms of bacteria you're talking about?
I think it's called L-lactis, Lactococcus lactis. I think that's the name, and that's my understanding is that the bacteria have SOD. They make SOD. If your gut is fine, you eat it, passes through. If your gut is inflamed, then you express what's called a lysozyme that kind of lyses the bacterial cell. So
gut inflammation is so rampant in our population. I would challenge any of you to walk into a Starbucks and look at a fairly lean person. They have a distended stomach. They look like they're maybe 1 or 2 months pregnant. Men and women. There's actually a study that was done about 5 or 6 years ago that looked at the girth size of the average American waist, and it summarized that while the girth is increasing, adipose tissue is not. It's because our guts are literally becoming distended. Now,
I know that.
I have thought about this for a decade now. Because if you have GERD, if you have obstructive sleep apnea, chances are you have gut issues that are causing the obstructive sleep apnea because of the edema is narrowing the windpipe and causes the soft tissue in the palate to fall down at night. I mean, I'm sure of what I'm saying. So
yeah.
I've looked at this for so long. The person who can figure out how to quench inflammation in the gut will save millions of people on this planet. Because something in our environment, I don't know if it's cell phones, because believe it or not, there's good studies coming out of Scandinavia that show that RF coming from cell phones alter microbiome diversity. Or is it the coffee we're drinking? Is it the pesticides we're eating? I don't know, but I'm telling you.
Sleep. Yeah.
And the lack of sleep. I'm even finding caffeine. The more caffeine I drink, the worse my gut gets. Not coffee either. Bang energy drinks. The more caffeine I consume, the worse my gut gets.
No, it can get irritated. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So figuring out how to solve the inflammation in the gut conundrum is big.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably working on this. A lot of people are interested in this, I think. I think that's another thing we're just realizing in general. Inflammation is something we should really be thinking about more, because it's often not it's not the bacteria that kill you. It's the inflammation. It's your body's response.
Yes.
It's like,
that's what killed you in COVID. It was cytokines that were killing people.
So they're finding
damaging the lungs. It wasn't the virus didn't kill them. It was their immune system response.
Body going
that's what
crazy.
It was.
Yeah. So it seems counterintuitive, but some things that can actually temper the immune system can make it better for you, right? To survive. So honestly, I'm not, after this thing that we saw, I'm saying we know a tiny bit about biology. I'm not going to say that anything is possible anymore. Not going to rule anything out, but there needs to be a lot of evidence. There needs to be a high bar for us to make claims, that
and in summary, what would you like both clinicians and lay people to take away from your research?
Guys, who wants to take it, or?
I guess I definitely I wouldn't encourage people just, if you have a bad night of sleep, I wouldn't encourage people just go and take supplements, because we really need to find much more research is required. And also regarding inflammation and gut issues, there have been a lot of studies and people have been trying to cure some inflammatory bowel disease with antioxidants, and the results are mixed. And there are many explanations. One could be, again, of course, ROS are important. So it's really important to have this perfect balance of ROS, not too much, not too little. Also, actually, no, you need to have a specific concentration of the compound in your gut to have an effect. And also some compounds have pleiotropic effects, which means, yes, they are antioxidant, but they do other things too. So sometimes effects are just because they reduce inflammation regardless of ROS. But if we really, what we are trying now is trying to find the exact mechanism, how these ROS are produced, because maybe then we could design more specific therapies, specifically target those ROS that are made when you don't sleep. But again, much more studies are needed.
No, I agree. Yeah, because too much of an antioxidant can become a pro-oxidant. And we've seen that in high-dose vitamin C therapies. It becomes pro-oxidant, so you have to be careful of that. Look, I want to thank all three of you for coming on the show. This is fascinating, and please promise to come back when you know more. I want to know what tissue is making the ROS. Is it a microbe? I want to know that.
We'll come back. Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, this was
Thank
really
you
fun.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, and we are going to say goodbye now. We don't. Let me see. We have a show Friday. We do. We have a show Friday. We have a show tomorrow. So we have some real good shows coming up. I hope you can tune in for those very soon. Let me see. What's today? Today is actually Wednesday. Yeah, we have a good show tomorrow on C. diff. If you know anybody who has C. diff, and then Friday we have biooptimizers coming on. They're coming on to talk about a new magnesium supplement, which I've been using. I take it right before bed, believe it or not, and it definitely helps me sleep deeper. Talking about sleep quality, anything that helps you sleep deeper is a good one. Christine Fox, thank you so much. The paper will be linked in this show on my website, so you just have to go there. Okay, see everybody tomorrow. Thank you for being here today and participating.